Rest Assure, a revolutionary sleep posture monitoring system. I'm submitting to the healthcare track with the challenge of wearable wisdom. So, the introduction to the problem. Essentially, there's a massive prevalence of poor sleep in hospitals. Nearly 76% of hospitalized patients report poor sleep quality. Adults in hospitals actually sleep less than 3 hours per night than the recommended amount. There's also something that's called as pressure ulcers. So, pressure ulcers, which are known as bed sores, are essentially skin issues that are caused because of prolonged pressure to the skin, because of friction and applying a lot of pressure and this is commonly caused during sleep. In fact, 5.85% of hospital patients acquire pressure injuries, and above 40% of ICU patients are at risk of developing pressure ulcers. So, in terms of costs, a pressure ulcer treatment can cost from $700 to $10,000 per patient. But more importantly, nearly $26.8 billion are spent in the US annually on pressure ulcer treatment, which is a massive amount. So what is the data that we can use to solve this? So the data is called as the PMAT data set. Essentially, it uses pressure sensing mats in hospitals to collect in-bed posture pressure data. Essentially, this is a data which is given as a 64 by 32 matrix of the pressure mat, and each value corresponds to the pressure that the patient puts on that particular point while he is sleeping. And the data is labeled by their sleeping posture. So there are 3 different sleeping postures: supine, left, or right, and right. And there are nearly 20,000 samples with 13 different subjects. And as you can see on the bottom right, after processing all this data, we can see that the data results in a human who is sleeping in a left posture. And this actually is shown a lot during my app. So what is the proposed solution? So using this untapped data, we can accurately determine the sleep posture of a patient at a given time, and therefore create a comprehensive sleep monitoring system that healthcare providers can use. So what are some of the features? There's machine learning for real-time posture classification. There's pressure visualization and analysis. There's integration of FHIR APIs for patient data. There's automatic alerts that are issued to nurses via text messages. And also there's healthcare security standards that are maintained throughout the procedure of this app. So let's just dive into the machine learning for the real-time posture classification for a bit. Essentially, I use a convolutional neural network and trained it on about 70% of the data set, and a lot of this has been sort of inspired by prior research papers and GitHub repositories. And I was actually able to achieve very high training accuracy from this model. And a prediction is shown on the bottom right. We can see that the human is sort of in a right sleeping position, and it actually accurately predicts that the human has a right sleeping position. So that's how machine learning is very important here, because it actually gives us actionable insight from the pressure data. Second thing that's important is FHIR standard and security. So FHIR standard is a universal standard designed to help healthcare systems communicate and store patient information. So there are different resources that store data, whether that's patients, observations, conditions, medications, etc. It's good because there's a quick and accurate access to patient data, which can help your analysis, and it's helped mine during this app. And it's also important because 98% of USA hospitals have adopted FHIR-enabled APIs, which means that this app that I've created is extremely viable for industry, because the data that it uses is already being used in industry, or the data standard that I'm using is already used in industry, and it'd be very easy to migrate it from this to a development or a production development. And also it's important because HIPAA security standards have also been considered throughout the development of this app. So that's whether that's audit logging, authentication, the principle of least privilege for the users, and also FHIR standards are built with the HIPAA standards in mind. So what are the challenges with adopting Rest Assure? The most important thing is that you need pressure mats for all of your sleeping beds, and it can cost up to $200 to $400 per pressure mat, which is obviously an issue. There's obviously staff training and adoption costs that hospitals will incur, the maintaining cost of the software, which includes the cost of the servers, running the servers and the different models, and finally the ML model maintenance, whether it's always to retrain the data and essentially keep improving the model. Having the right expertise for that would be a challenge. So now it's time for the demo. So this is Rest Assure. The user first lands and sees this page. Essentially summarizes what the app is. Now this is an app that's built for nurses. Remember, no nurses at hospitals, so who have access to the patients in the beds of the hospital. So this is just a dummy account I've created. Once the nurse logs in, it takes her to a dashboard which has all the patients and their sleeping positions in real time. So what's important is that these sleeping positions are actually the sleeping positions of the patients currently, and the nurse can use this app to monitor throughout the night the different sleeping positions. And all these images are created by parsing and analyzing the pressure data from the data set. And as I said, it's real time. This is completely real time, and as you can see, it's changing as well. So that's more proof that it's real time. And if I were to click on one of these things, it tells us actually a lot of information that's really important. So one is all this information here is from the FHIR standard APIs. That gives us access to information such as the pressure ulcer history, which can be useful to a nurse. It also gives you analysis of the sleep, which is the current posture. This is the prediction by the machine learning model, and also it gives you the number of position changes. One important thing is something called the accumulated pressure. Essentially, it shows you how much pressure has the patient took place at a particular body part over a period of time, and if this particular pressure goes through a very high threshold, then the pressure risk changes and the nurse is immediately alerted through text message. And this is another sort of visualization for the patient, which tells what are the different sleeping postures they've had throughout time. So for example, if we look here, we can see that the sleeping postures are different for each patient. And again, as this is all being updated real time, So the data is sort of developing, being refreshed every sort of minute. And yeah, so this results in different data for each of the patients. And so just to demo sort of the FHIR data. So the FHIR data is essentially, this is a server that I've created that is fully FHIR compliant. And you can see over here that if we were to read a particular patient resource, this would be one patient, and this is how all the data is structured. This is how data is structured in the real world as well. So that's what's important. It's very easily interchangeable with real world data. And also another thing, as I said, was the HIPAA logs. Log auditing is very important for healthcare systems, healthcare software systems. And over here you can see this is sort of an API that would only be accessed by admins. Essentially, this shows what the nurse has done, which patient they viewed, what reads they've done, what writes they've done, what times they've done it, at what time they've done this, and also they can download this as a TXT file. And yeah, essentially that's it. Thank you.